This week on 3 Questions with Corey Kareem.
Everyone knew me as a girl who worked at Google, and now it's like, that's not me anymore. So I had to figure out who I was outside of my job and my career.
So in 2023, right, Laura gets laid off in January. And then in June of 2023, I get laid off from my job at Netflix. I actually got laid off while I was on vacation. I was, to give the actual details, I was literally in an airport lounge.
Never turn back. Only go clockwise. Never go back.
Now, before we get started with this beautiful conversation, please help a brother out and click on that follow button on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another episode of 3 Questions with Corey Kareem, the podcast where we sit down with some amazing people who are doing some amazing things. And that's right. You guessed it. We ask them 3 questions, sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7. I know. I read the comments. But rather than just talk about my guests, their wins or their successes, we tend to start the conversation around their failures or mistakes or mishaps. And more importantly, the lessons that they learn from those individual experiences. So with that being said, my next guests are 2 inseparable sisters who, despite their age difference, are often mistaken for twins. And yes, I definitely made that mistake too. They do almost everything together, from school to cross-country moves. They both now live in California, and they both graduated from the prestigious University of Cornell University. You guys know where I went? I went to Brooklyn College. Shout out to all my CUNY brass.
Hey.
You know? Now, this awesome sister dynamic duo has a diverse range of skills, with one being a producer and strategist working for companies like Netflix in the past, and the other with a background in social impact law, government, and film. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, my guests have a podcast, Sisters Who Watch, where they debate the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Together, they're on a mission, y'all, to spread joy and bring people together through their shared love of content and storytelling. So, without further ado, Shelby and Laura, welcome to the podcast.
Yay. What an intro.
Love that. Oh my
You like the little remix?
Loved it.
Good.
That's awesome. So I gotta ask. So who's the eldest? Who's the wiser? The eldest.
Ooh, well, I am the oldest. This is
I would.
Shelby.
Yeah, you
Does
guys.
Laura
do look like,
give older energy?
no, but you guys do look like twins, though.
We get it all the time.
When I met you guys in DC, I legit thought you guys were twins.
So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it varies. Sometimes people think Laura's older. Sometimes people think I'm older. But
Laura, how do you feel about that?
I try not to take any offense to the twin comment or me being older. No. I just take it that Shelby looks really young. That's how I take the comment.
You should be. See, now I know why you work with government. That's a good political spin. I see that. It's all about perspective. I love that. Awesome. Anything I missed in the intro that you guys want to share about yourselves in terms of who you guys are, what you guys do, and what you're about?
Ooh, well, it was an amazing intro, truly. Only other thing I'd add is that we are so passionate about entertainment, movies, film, TV shows, because we grew up watching it. Like, we just were in a family where we were watching TV and movies all the time. I joke that some households you weren't allowed to watch TV. We probably watched way too much. Like, it's not a rule at all. And then I was a film minor in college. Laura took music and film classes. I've worked at film festivals. Like, we turned that passion and then now to like actually study it and work on it. So when you listen to our podcast, we bring the passion and the expertise.
Exactly. Yeah, I think some people just think, oh, we're 2 girlies who love to chit chat about reality TV, which is not incorrect. But right, we both took filmmaking classes starting in high school, right? Like, so we have like a video and film editing background. We're really passionate about the industry. We've taken lots of classes. Shelby was a film minor. I took lots of film classes in college too. So this is something that, we have, the expertise and the professional background as well.
Yeah. I was a film minor as well. I kind of hated it, actually. I kind of hated it. So my major was television and radio. And I had a minor in film and marketing. And then I was like halfway through the minor for film. And I was like, I kind of don't like this. I liked the bits, but I guess it was, you know what? It was more theory than I wanted it to be. And I didn't enjoy the film theory part of film. I liked the production aspect. But yeah, so that's what I did in college. That was what I did. Question. This might be dating myself here. The show Sister Sister. Do you guys even know that?
Of course.
Oh, okay. I know there's a little bit of generation gap here. I didn't, you guys might have been too young. Were you guys like inspired by that anymore? Because you kind of giving me that energy right now.
Ooh, we'll take
what
it.
A compliment. Love that. It's funny. We definitely grew up when they were towards the end of the show and they would show like reruns and stuff. So I feel like we grew up on it, maybe just towards the tail end. And I would always say, oh, I love Tia and Tamara. I want to be like them. Like my mom remembers that. I was such a huge fan of Sister. And I say we both were.
Oh, yeah. It's not like every day where you'd see two Black women sisters on TV being themselves. Like it was so fun to watch. So yes, of course, we loved that show as kids.
Got you. Well, I was just curious. All right, so let's jump right into this. Let's come out the gate swinging, as you say, and we're gonna start heavy here. So tell me about a moment in time where both of you, individually, of course, had to face your biggest challenge, mistake, setback. What happened? How'd you overcome it? And most importantly, what'd you learn from that experience?
Yeah, I can go first. I think mine and Shelby's stories are so similar. It's really eerie.
So you guys even share mistakes together? That's what happens?
Yes.
Crazy. That similar.
Exactly. Yeah, so I can start. So I was at the beginning of last year, I was laid off from my job very unexpectedly. I was working in tech. I was a full-time employee at Google. And this was when all of tech was, still tech is going through it. There's layoffs happening every single day. And this was when like Twitter and Facebook, and it felt like every single big company was doing it. So for Google, we were like, oh, there might be layoffs coming. Like, we're not sure. But everyone on my team was like, oh, we're fine. Like, we're not going to be impacted. And then like one Friday morning in January, Shelby actually calls my phone. And my phone is buzzing. It's like 8 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, why is she calling me at 8 a.m. on a Friday morning? And then she was like, are you okay? And I was so confused. I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, I'm fine. And then she was like, check your phone. I was like, what? What do you mean check your phone? I was so freaked out. And then I see I have all these texts and notifications. And everyone's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I was so freaked out. I was like, what are they all talking about? And then I go to open my corporate laptop, like, okay, time to log on, like Friday morning, work from home. And then it's just not working. Like, I can't log in. I'm like, what's going on? And I check my personal email and it's like, you were laid off today. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just lost my job. And I have no access to my corporate email. Like my badge no longer works. That's how it happened. Had no idea it was coming. And like I'm a new grad. I moved across the country for this job, a lot of change happened because of it. And I felt like I had failed. I was like, what did I do wrong? Right? I had this like really prestigious job and all of a sudden it's just ripped away from you. And I was like so devastated, of course, as most people would be. But during that time, I decided to, use that money in the severance package. I was like, okay, y'all are going to pay me for several months. I'm going to travel. I was like, I'm going to go abroad. So I decided to go to Japan and Korea. I went to Asia for the first time, which is really incredible. I did a 1-month solo traveling trip across Europe, which was like so incredible. I learned so much about myself. And during that time, specifically while traveling, I learned that I'm so much more than my job. I think, right, growing up and being really ambitious, like your identity is so much rooted in like where you go to school, like what are you interested in, what's your major, and now being an adult, like what's your job, where are you working? And then once like your job is ripped away from you, right? Everyone knew me as a girl who worked at Google, and now it's like that's not me anymore. So I had to figure out who I was outside of my job and my career, because that can just be ripped away from you so fast.
You hit on a couple of things that I can relate to. One of them, what you just said, is a lot of people know me also as a guy who works at Spotify. And I try to and I love that, but I also very much aware of what's been going on. We've gone through a bunch of what's going on in tech. And also it's I'm very conscious of that fact. So while I'm still here, I'm blessed to still have the opportunity. I continuously find ways to develop my own identity outside of the organization, because I understand it's not mine, and any time it can be taken away from me. Hence why I'm very passionate about the podcast platform, because it's my way of building my personal brand outside of Spotify. So I can definitely relate to that kind of the girl who worked at Google type thing.
Exactly.
Shelby, what about you?
Yeah, so as Laura mentioned, we have eerily similar stories.
I know, it's crazy.
So it's crazy. So in 2023, right, Laura gets laid off in January. And then in June of 2023, I get laid off from my job at Netflix. So in the same year, 6 months apart, we get impacted by tech layoffs. You can't make it up. You literally can't. It could be a movie. And slightly different. Netflix had been doing a lot of team reorgs and layoffs. So people were nervous, but I never would have thought I, would have been impacted, right? You never think it'll be you. And I actually got laid off while I was on vacation. I was, to give the actual details, I was literally in an airport lounge when it happened to me. I had gotten a text message from my boss the night before, hey, it's really important, I need to schedule a meeting with you. And that's happened to me before when I was on vacation, about projects or org changes. So I didn't think it would mean I'm losing my job. So I accommodated. It was oh, I'm traveling, I could only do a certain amount of time. So I'm finding a spot in an airport lounge. It's not even private. I'm out in the open, and I take this video call, and HR joins, and I'm oh my gosh.
Oh God.
It was brutal. One of the hardest days of my life. And what's tough is I was doing really well. You ask questions does this have to do with my performance? They're no. I'm okay. You tend to think your success on the job is related to keeping your job, but not always. These companies just we need to trim down, right? We need less people. And I was given an option to potentially move to other parts of the business that were more tech focused, but I worked in content and film, and that's what I want to do. So I wanted to be purposeful about my decision. So I was no, I'm going to take my severance like Laura and go. And definitely betting on yourself. I, like Laura, realized so much of my life has been about the accomplishments. I remember I got my first internships in high school. I've always been someone that was career oriented, looking for the next thing. And over the last year and a half post Netflix, I've had to do a lot of self-reflection and realize my value does not come from anybody or anything or any title or any place I've worked. I'm not that girl from Netflix. I'm Shelby Holland. I have my own brand. I have my own value. Comes from the Most High God, okay? It does not come from anyone on this earth. So that is a big takeaway for me. And also, I think a mistake I made was putting so much time and effort into my job at Netflix. I worked really hard. And I remember on vacation, literally a few days before, I was working, sending emails. And I regret that, knowing a week later I'm laid off. So I definitely think a a lesson has been balance, and
Yes.
whatever job you're in, having something outside of work, making sure you're not putting all your time and energy into it, because you're just a cog in the wheel. Like at the end of the day, unless you're the CEO or on the board, you really don't have much say or even if you have stock, right? Like as just a lower level employee, they really don't care about you. And it's sad to think that way. But I have reflected and realized, okay, I put so much time into that. We need to not do that moving forward. So it's been cool to have sisters who watch over the last 2.5 as well for us to like invest in and build out, because it's ours.
Yeah. I mean, the layoffs are hard. It's funny you talk about the email. I remember getting an email at a previous organization I was at, and it was so vague. I was like, yo, something's off about this, because it was like super late at night. It's like 8:30. Hey, and I'm gonna move our one-on-one to like first thing in the morning, when I was like, all right, our one-on-one's already set at 11 on Fridays all the time. So I'm like, this is not right. But something just instinctively told me, I think something's gonna happen. So I already started like taking what I needed off my laptop. I did all the things, because I was like, worst case scenario, I already have everything that I need. And sure enough, that's what it was. And this was for me at this particular time, 3 weeks before the pandemic, before the world shut down. That's when that happened.
Wow.
And I remember like going through it, similar to you, Laura. I was like, or I think either one of you said it was due to performance. Shelby, you said it was due to performance. No, because I was hitting my numbers, all this. Oh, just not a right fit. They're using the coded language, right? So I was like, all right, cool. Wasn't beefing about it, because they gave me a pretty nice severance, right? And I used that time wisely in the 3 weeks leading up to the pandemic. And before the pandemic fully shut down the world, I already secured another opportunity to start in 2 months from that time frame. But I just remember that feeling, being like, all right, what would I do differently? Like, if this was to run back, is there anything I could have done differently? And I remember just like going back to, I think I went to the YMCA, because I live close to one. I went in the sun. I did some laps in the pool to kind of get my mind out of a funk, keep the mind and the body active. And I sat in the sauna for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and just thinking about what my next steps were going to be. But it's definitely an uncomfortable feeling, but it happens and it's real. So speaking of that, being that you guys successfully transitioned, what are some hacks you both discovered while navigating that disruption in your career journey that you can share with some other people that potentially are going through that situation right now?
Yeah. Laura, did you want to start or you want me to?
You go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because over the last few years, layoffs are rampant, right? Like I feel like whatever industry, especially tech, layoffs are happening. So a lot of people are impacted. And Laura and I actually participated in like a Cornell alumni event that was talking to people about how to deal with layoffs. I think a big thing is like focusing on you. You hear like self-care a lot, but in terms of like pampering yourself, but also like just reflect and take the time to like process what has happened and like make sure yourself is okay. I think that's really important. I journal, and like that's a helpful practice for me. Like looking back on like my journal entry, like the day I had the layoff is like kind of crazy, but it's like helpful to like reflect and see how I was processing my emotions. I also think leveraging your network.
Big one.
After my layoff, I realized, whoa, there's so many other people that have been laid off from Netflix. So now there's like this whole Netflix alumni group at all these different places. So let me reach out to all of them and catch up. Also realizing, why am I not tapping into my high school network? Why am I not thinking more about my ex-Morgan Stanley network? Because that's where I used to work before that, right? There's so many networks that we don't always take advantage of, and you never know who could be that new connection. And whenever I met with someone, always asking, oh, is there anyone else you think I should meet with? And so then it would just be like, okay, like 5 meetings down the line that all stem back from that one initial meeting, but it's because I'm always asking like who else I can meet with.
Right. No, I love the network piece, because I'll add something to your intelligence. There's that saying, your network is your net worth, whatever. But I think a part of that people kind of miss out on is keeping your relationships warm. So it's one thing to go like wide, you meet all these people, you go to these different networking events, you're a part of these different alumni groups. But how often do you reach out to people just to like catch up, coffee, whatever, right? And most importantly, on top of that, are you only doing it when you need something, or are you just doing this to check in? So one of the things I started doing a few years back is just checking in on people that I've worked with in the past, just to catch up. You schedule a little, whether it's online, in person, because I didn't want to be the guy that I only come to people when I need something. Right. And I find like that way, like one of my old bosses used to say, focus on what you can control. Right. And one of the few things that we can control, especially in a big organization, is your effort. Right. So the way I look at it is, you can't really control when there's going to be another major layoff. Right. That's kind of out of your hands. But what you can control is the quality of the relationships that you maintain and that you create. So, and one of the ways you can do that is just checking in with people. Hey, do you need help with anything? So that when the time does come, it's not so awkward when you do reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for my next new challenge, my new opportunity, however you want to phrase that. So I love the fact that you just shared the network aspect, Shelby.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I would say my advice for anyone who just experienced a layoff or is unemployed looking for their next gig, I would say, especially if you got laid off, use that severance package, right? Like, take that trip. That's what I said to so many people who also got laid off. I was like, just go somewhere, right? You don't need to be in town. You got some money. Just do something for you. And my first reaction when I got laid off, I was like, okay, I got to update my resume, right? I got to start applying for jobs. But it's interesting now how I'm back in the workforce. I've been at this job now for over a year. Like, why was I rushing to go back into the workforce? I have a great job now. I'm now a paralegal for the federal government. So very different from tech, but it's a great job. But it's like, just enjoy the time off. Like, working is so stressful. Like, right, you're not the boss. People are telling you what to do. You have a timeline, you have deadlines. So just like, take the trip, enjoy the time off. And I'm so happy that I was not working for about 6 months, and I'm so happy I decided to travel, see friends, have new experiences, because you'll never have that time ever again to just do whatever you want.
Good point.
So I'm so happy I did that. And right, not just taking the trip, but use the time to do something you've always wanted to do. And I love how Sisters Who Watch was born, right? Out of the trauma of being laid off, right? Shelby and I have always talked about making a podcast. And because, right, we had these corporate 9-to-5 jobs that are kind of soul sucking. And we're like, we want to do something fun for us that will bring us joy, that we can call our own, right? We're like, a podcast seems like a good, platform to do that on. So at the beginning, on New Year's Eve of 2022, we wrote down Sisters Who Watch. We're like, we need to do this. We need to do this. And then, right, life gets busy. It's the new year. We're working our jobs. Like, we didn't really do anything since New Year's Eve. And then, right, I was laid off a few weeks later at the end of January. And then I was like, this is the time. I have all the time in the world. I don't have a job. Let me just do this. So, right, I was able to spend all my time focusing on Sisters Who Watch, getting that off the ground. And we made it happen, right? So when you have time, right, being laid off from a job, use that. Do it to do all the things you've been wanting to do. And I'm so happy that Shelby and I both use that time to focus on ourselves, invest in our careers, invest in our passions.
That's crazy. Sorry, go ahead, Shelby.
No, I was gonna say, it's so true. Like, I went to my first podcast movement after being laid off. Like, I wouldn't have had like the time, like in the middle of the week, to go to like a conference, right? But like now it's like, yeah, I can do that. We were able to go to Essence Fest together, something we didn't know we would be able to have vacation time to do. So definitely taking advantage of like that open space and like
Right.
making room for the fun things, but also the productive things.
Yeah. And similar to you guys, that's how Three Questions was born during that gap when I got laid
Nice.
off as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You got to use that time, and I especially like the traveling aspect. I love to travel. It's one of my favorite things to do. That's one of my vices of life, if you want to call it a vice. And I particularly like the fact that it opens up your perspective. It shows
Yes.
you that there's many ways to live this thing we call life, and that's very therapeutic on many different levels. So I love the fact that traveling was such a big thing for you, Laura. So let's switch gears here for a second. Let's talk about entertainment, pop culture. Let's have some fun with this. The area that you guys talk about, and well, I know it's film and entertainment specifically. So I'm gonna have a little fun with this because we're at the tail end of this, but talking about my guy Drake. You guys know I'm based in Toronto. That's kind of like our guy, and you guys are in California. So I just figured this would be a great way to ease into this entertainment side of the conversation. So, do you guys think that Drake should go for a second round against Kung Fu Kenny?
No.
No, I think Drake needs to stay inside. That's what I think Drake needs to do. He needs to recover, take some time for himself. I saw him posting pictures with his son. Focus on your family, Drake. Focus on your family.
Yeah, I feel like until the Super Bowl halftime show, Drake needs to be in hiding, and then he can make his comeback afterwards.
I hear you on that one. All right. Second part to that is, which music artist today has a life story that would make a great biopic?
Ooh,
I can start.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm a huge Beyonce fan. I'm in the Beehive.
I'm on the Beehive.
And Shelby and I, we actually went to the Renaissance World Tour together last year.
Yes, in Inglewood.
Yes, in Inglewood, and we didn't see the Kendrick Lamar show or the Diana Ross one, right? Not that one, but it was amazing. It was unbelievable, and we actually reviewed the Renaissance World Tour on our podcast. So if you're also a Beyonce fan, check that episode out.
And Cowboy Carter,
right? And Cowboy Carter, the album. I think Beyonce, especially with all the conspiracy swirling around her these days, I think we need a biopic. We need to see from start to finish Houston, Destiny's Child, her and Jay-Z. She has such an interesting, amazing story, and how she's been able to be famous from the 90s to 2024. It's wild. So I need a Beyonce biopic.
I like that. Shelby, do you have someone different or the same? Are you guys going to choose that the same too?
No, I think it's different. Laura took the best choice for sure, but I will share someone else. It's tough because I was going between like Rihanna or Meg Thee Stallion, but I think I'll pick Rihanna mostly because to see someone who was such a successful like musician, right, and singer, entertainer, and then transition to like the business side well with Fenty.
Yeah,
I think it'd be so interesting to like unpack that and understand like how you've been able to go from a music empire to like a business beauty empire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the right choice because I think Meg's story is still developing. It's still a bit early. She's like 5 years in roughly. Yes. So I feel like I'd want to give that another 5 years before you do a biopic on her. For me, if I'm going to answer this question, you guys know who I'm going to pick. I think I'm going to pick Drake.
Of course.
Tell us why.
Hold on. Well, listen, there's 15 years of content plus, right? 15 years of dominance plus. There's a lot to that story. You could probably break it down into three, like a 3-part series, really, if you want to look at it that way. And I think it'd be very interesting because he's such an anomaly of an artist. I mean, half Jewish, half Black, different. Also didn't grow up in the hood, different. Didn't rap about selling drugs or gangster stuff and still made it to the top. right? And then I think he like, not to say he started this, he obviously, took some notes from Kanye and a few other folks, but like he really kind of showed that you could be an artist even though you're a rapper. Like you can hop on different sounds from the what am I thinking about? The reggaeton to the UK style, and just be an artist. Because I feel sometimes in hip hop specifically, guys really pigeonhole themselves by saying, "Hey, I'm a trap rapper, or I am a whatever. I'm a backpack, and I don't want to get out of that box." When really, when you're an artist, you're like an alchemist, right? You adapt your sound, right? But I think a Drake biopic would be pretty awesome to see.
I think that's a good pick though, because I remember I watched Degrassi. Like Drake started out as a kid actor. What an arc! Kid actor in Canada to being the biggest rapper in the world. Like you can't make that up. It's really crazy.
I know it's very odd. You definitely couldn't make that up.
No.
And Corey, I just gotta ask, how does Drake recover from Kung Fu Kenny?
You know how it is? You were kind of going down this direction. Get in the studio, make more music. Listen, one of the disses Kendrick said was like, "Oh, you make music that pacifies them." There's truth to that, but I don't even want to look at it as a negative way. I think that people make different kinds of music. Drake makes a lot of fun, relaxing, chill out music, where Kendrick is more leans to the conscious side most of the time, not all the time. So I feel like if Drake just got in the studio, did like an old Kanye West where 100 beats in a summer, 100 songs, and just 90 days locked himself in the studio and started coming out with hits again, it's kind of like, oh, that happened. Like I feel like a lot of people would have like low-key amnesia if he just did that. So I think that's how Drake recovers from this loss, if you will.
I think you're right. Like it's so true. Like I personally have listened to more Drake than Kendrick in my life because he does have like more of like the vibe. Like you're at a party, you just want to chill. Like you listen to Drake. So I agree. He's more easy listening. And I think if he comes out with a banger, people will be into it.
Yeah, in a year, no one's gonna remember that Drake went into hiding.
Not in depthly, but I will say, like, I think we both can give credit to the both of them. Like that was a moment in hip hop culture. Like the way people were dissecting the bars, it's like people that don't even like to research were doing research. Like you see how people went in depth with the Kendrick lines. Oh, this means this, and I was like, dude, you guys never even paid that much attention in school, and now you guys are all in. And what was even more funny about it, it was grown people taking the time out of their day to dissect that. So I think it was a moment, man. It was a moment for the culture for sure. So continuing on this, our entertainment banter, we'll get more to a little bit of the controversial side here, a little bit. So if they called the both of you to work on a Diddy biopic, would you want to be a part of it? That's question one. And part two is, if so, what parts of his story would you focus on?
Shelby.
Laura's like, I ain't answering this one.
My initial like gut reaction is no, just because I feel like it is so like messy and polarizing right now. And I feel like I need to know like who's producing the biopic, right? Like, is it his family? Are they going to be heavily involved? Because if it's that case, then they're probably going to want a more like positive lens.
Of course.
Like, so it's like trying to understand who's involved in the biopic before making a decision. Also, people keep saying things like, oh, when Diddy goes down, a lot of people are going to go down. Like he's connected to really big people in the industry. It's like, I don't even know if I'd want my name attached to like something that's coming for Diddy, if that's the case, you know? So I'd be hesitant to be involved, particularly if you're digging into the recent drama and accusations. Like that just feels like something I do not want to touch.
Yeah. I feel like you can't win with a Diddy biopic, right? You're either positive or like way too negative and people are going to come for you, your career's over. Yeah, I think I agree. At first I was like, oh, well, maybe I could tell a nuanced story that will empower the victims. And I was like, actually, I just think that, yeah, with a new biopic, I think it's going to be really hard to win. People are going to dislike your movie no matter what.
Yeah, that's a good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also feel like pre all of these accusations, you probably could have had a really good biopic, right? His story of like
that's fair,
growing up in New York City and then like becoming a rapper, becoming a business mogul, right? He has so many different types of businesses, records, ventures. I think it could have been like, whoa, how did he come from like a kid in Harlem to one of the most popular rappers and business moguls in the world? I think you could have been able to tell that story, but now all this stuff coming out, it's like throughout all of this time, he's been doing other things on the side that are really like gross. So it would be hard to separate those two, if that makes sense.
No, you guys both bring up a great point. It'd be polarizing. Yeah. So you'd have people that'd be very interested because it is a dynamic story. And I think it also leans into the fact that most people are multifaceted. And I don't mean to the extent of Diddy where you have like this like really dark side and then this other side that's like a star and a phenom and iconic figure. But like, you know, most people have different sides to them. And I think people would be interested into seeing that story about how he came to fame and success. And then you could also lead into, you know, some of the darkness, if you will, because you're right, though. I think, Shelby, you were saying, you know, what parts would you want to focus on? Because when I think of like, did they do a biopic? They didn't do. Yeah, they did do a biopic on Martin Luther King Jr., right? They did do one. Was it Selma?
Yeah.
Right, but they didn't lean into the fact that, you know, there were allegations about Martin, you know, having multiple partners, if you will, right? So I feel like there's a lot there, but I get it. The story is still unraveling, and you might not want to touch that one yet.
Yeah. Might be too messy for my liking.
All right, let's talk about trauma porn for a second. Yeah. There are quite a few people who believe Black films and TV series repeat the same narrative. Gangster, drug dealer, absentee father, single mother, struggling back family, yada, 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 yada. Do you guys believe there's a lack of diversity in the type of storytelling when it comes to Black culture? What are your thoughts?
100%. Yeah. So when I talk about this on the podcast all the time, we're like, where are the Black folks, period? And then when we are there, right, it's, the single Black mom, the drug dealers, you know, and the slave, 12 years of no Black people at the Oscars, of course, following 12 years a slave. Yeah, it feels like, right, if we think about all the, quote, like critically acclaimed Black stories, you know, 12 Years a Slave, Moonlight, Harriet, I'm just thinking of, you know, some of the most popular movies recently. The Help, right? It's all about Black trauma, right? Slavery, broken households. 100% there's a lack of diversity in Black stories. And we're talking about this, we're like, okay, what are the Black stories on TV right now? And the only one that is kind of not stereotypical is like Abbott Elementary. It's just, you know, Black teachers and Black students having a fun time at school. And I think that's why that show's so popular. And I mean, we love that show because it's refreshing. We've never seen anything like it, you know? So we need more stories like that.
Right.
For sure. And I think that's why a lot of people right now are going back to watch old sitcoms from like the 80s and 90s or 2000s. Like Laura and I were rewatching The Parkers. So funny. Like, I feel like a lot of people are going back to rewatching shows. I recently was rewatching Scandal, one of my favorite shows growing up. And I think a lot of people are going back to when we had more interesting representation on TV than we do now. And then you look at movies, it is really hard to find like interesting representation that isn't just oh, we're struggling. Oh, we're drug dealers. Oh, it's just really like family trauma and dramatic and
Prostitutes
around. Yeah,
strippers.
all super heavy. And I
Yeah.
personally love myself like a good lighthearted piece of content, whether it's
Mhm.
like a rom-com or a dramedy, inspirational, and we rarely get those. Like I think for every Hidden Figures, there are like 20, 12 Years a Slaves.
Yeah. Facts. Hidden Figures was such a good movie too, because I didn't even know about it. I found this fascinating. It's funny. So I also have a creative collective, and I'm probably the least creative in that collective. It's a combination of directors, writers, authors, all the above. And we came out with our first feature-length film movie. Was called Wallflower. And funny enough, like our mandate, which I kind of created, was we want to expand the narrative of how Black folks are seen on the big screen. Because, you know, I'm not mad at 50 Cent. I watched them. I watched them all. I'm happy for him. But that's not everyone's story, right? It's not. And I think it's the reason why it was even more important for my team to kind of have this kind of objective is like, I don't think people really realize the impact of when you see the same narrative about a specific group of people that actually conditions people to think that way. I'll give you a small example. My personal life, when I was working for a startup many years ago, I remember I was like in between meetings. I was sitting in my car, killing some time. And this lady like pulls up in her car next to me and she kind of like hit my car, like tapped it. Nothing crazy. And then she looked at me crazy like it was my fault. And I was like, but ma'am, I'm parked. Right. You like there's no way, you know, going back and forth. And then out of nowhere, she says to me, well, maybe you should have stayed in school. I was like, what? Where did that even come from? At this point, I already graduated from college, 3.5 GP. Like, I like, where did she get that from? Right. Right. So you got to think about like how we are conditioning, and for 95% of people, seeing is believing. And so if you keep showing the same narrative, this helps to feed into certain stereotypes out there, which is why I feel like it's so important for us to have diversity of how we are seen on the big screen, because this feeds into people's psyches, right? Like, it's crazy. Not every Black person is going to have a single mom. Not every Black person is going to have that story. And so it's important for us to have that seen on the big screen.
100% agree. I remember in college, similar to you, I was taking film theory classes, and I realized, whoa, the media is such a powerful tool. Like the impact a particular story has on not only like the Black people watching, right, but the white people, like everyone else.
100%.
And it reminded me, like, oh, we are such stewards of culture in entertainment. Like
1,000.
every single film, TV show, podcast, like music, you're stewarding culture, and people don't always see it this way, but you do have like, you need to be able to steward that well, right? And like be careful about like what stories you are telling, because to your point, Corey, it can impact how people view Black people. That's why I feel like, Laura, when we've traveled internationally, people are like Beyonce or like Rihanna, like they
Tyra Banks.
Popular Black women they know.
Laura, if I was like an Italian guy or an internet, I might have given you Chloe Bailey. I might have said that. I always said that one. Kind of looks like
that would work better. That would work better than Beyonce.
She's like, I'll take it. She's like, I'll take it.
I haven't gotten Chloe Bailey before. I will take it. But yeah, we've been called every famous Black woman in the book, whatever. Michelle Obama.
I got to think. One guy told me, this is years ago, I look like Kanye. Come on, like stop. I look not like any famous Black person. I've probably been called that at some point in my life. I'm like, I look nothing like Kanye.
I can't.
Nothing. It's hilarious.
Crazy.
But you guys are 100% right. And I didn't even think about, you know, Shelby, you were just saying this. It's not just outside cultures, outside communities. It also impacts the way that we see each other. I think it brings to mind when I was in college, at Brooklyn College, I was in between classes, because, you know, when you're in university, your class could be at 11 a.m., 2 p.m., all throughout the day. So I had a break around, I think, like 1:30 in the afternoon. I was home, and this young this black lady, she looked like a mom, would say, "Young man, why aren't you in school?" I was like, "Man, I'm in college. I'm on a break." She was like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm so proud of you." I was like I was thankful, but at the same time, her expectation of me thought that I was cutting class, right? That was her knee-jerk thought. Like, why aren't you in school? I'm like, no, I'm in school. We have a break. But and it works both ways. That's my point. Damn.
It's sad, but it's true. Like, the stereotypes, we can reinforce them as well if that's all we're spewed. It's like, oh, I guess with every like Tyler Perry movie, I guess every like black grandma is like a Medea. It's like, no, not everyone.
Absolutely. Okay. Last big question here. This is a fun one. If you guys could direct and produce a movie or a TV show of your choice, what would it be about and why?
Ooh, okay. I can start. So Shelby and I, we do love reality television. We do. So I'm gonna give you one TV show and maybe a movie concept. Okay. So Shelby and I have already pitched. I mean, if you listen to our podcast, we're constantly pitching things. We're like, this would be a great show. This would be a great movie. Constantly. I think we would love to see maybe a reality show. We love dating shows with like maybe like maybe with curvy women. Like we would love to see that because I feel like on all these shows, it's like these, Victoria's Secret looking models, like people we don't really care about, like not representative of the population. So maybe like a tall stallion, like someone, or maybe even like a celebrity, maybe someone like maybe Megan Thee Stallion as like, being the Bachelorette or something, or Nicole Byer, right? Just someone you don't usually see as the main character, being loved and supported and chosen and pursued on TV. I would love that. So we've talked about that as a concept in the past. And then maybe a movie. We're talking about it. Make us into a movie. Two sisters get laid off with 6 months.
That's a real story, though. That is like, I saw it in my head. Right, and I think it would make it better if you guys played as twins. I think that would just. I think you guys make yourself twins since people already think you guys are twins. One worked at Google, one worked at Netflix. Both went to Cornell. That's very. Wow. Yes, I see that.
That's great. I love the idea of changing it to twins. That'll be perfect.
Yeah, the layoff twins. Yeah, twins to watch. Okay, it's good.
I love that.
So funny. Completely agree with Laura's options, and I'd say similar to like the reality dating theme. I really like Indian matchmaking and Jewish matchmaking on Netflix, and I feel like there should be like a Black Christian matchmaking.
Interesting.
About kind of why can't we have matchmaking but like Black people and like more related to like our faith, like not that all Black people are Christians. It could be like Black people who are Muslims or like whatever, but just like a Black centered matchmaking show that has like a faith lens, because I feel like there's a lot of interest in those matchmaking shows. I'm like, hey, I want a Black version. And I feel like also having a faith lens would be cool.
Right. So how do you guys feel about Pop the Balloon?
Wait,
what's Pop the Balloon?
You see the stuff on YouTube and where they line up? You guys have never seen that?
No.
Real? Oh God, I gotta put you guys on. That's crazy.
Oh no.
I'll send you one. There's so many variations now. So there's I can't remember the original creator, but a young lady, a YouTuber, she created her own dating show essentially. And I know the networks are kicking themselves in the ass right now because it's so popular, but there's so many spinoffs of it. Basically, it's a dating show, and so if you're the woman looking to date men, there'll be 6 guys lined up and they all have a balloon, right? And so basically you pop who you're not interested in off the top, and then they ask questions. So hey, so why did you pop his balloon? And then there's kind of like an exchange back and forth. I'll send it to you guys. Super popular, kind of weird. They're getting kind of weird now, but they're definitely trending on social media right now.
Ooh, that sounds so cool. Yes, please send. I'm curious now.
Will do.
See.
Will do. Okay. So you know when I said this name of this podcast is 3 questions? You guys remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
A while ago.
Definitely asked more than that. But the actual 3 questions part is the part that I'm coming to right now. So I call this like rapid fire. So this is where I want you guys to answer the first thought that comes to your mind, really, as quickly as possible. So these are more like fun, like questions. So let's have fun with it. So the first one for you guys both. What's the worst movie you've ever seen?
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Okay, and my gut reaction, this was in college. Some of my friends were like, oh, just come over, like we'll watch a movie.
Oh no, I know what you're gonna say.
I saw it's called A Christmas Prince on Netflix.
Oh my gosh, Laura.
So like actually so bad. It's one of those movies that's so bad and cheesy that you're like, oh, cute Christmas. I actually thought it was horrible. So that's what I'm gonna say. Don't recommend.
Don't watch that.
I'm screaming. Laura's like, don't watch the Hallmarky Christmas movies on Netflix.
Yeah.
This is really tough. Can I say like the worst movie I've seen this year?
Go for it.
Does that count?
Yeah.
So what comes to mind is the Joker sequel. I hated it. I thought it was so bad. I wasted money and time. The reason why there are a lot of reasons why I didn't like it, but there were just so many expectations, right? The first movie was really good.
Oscar award
box office. Yeah, won Oscars. We did a review on Joker 2 on our podcast. So if you want to listen to that, you can. But just like a little insight into why we didn't like it. It fell flat and wasn't really a superhero movie. It was like a courtroom drama. And from beginning to end, it felt like there was no point or plot. Like, why did I just watch almost 2 hours? And it felt like Lady Gaga was underutilized. It was just dark for no reason. Like, I don't really like dark stuff. So if you're going to do something intense and dark, there needs to be justification. It just felt like they were like beating up people to beat up people, kill people to kill people. Like there wasn't a reason for a lot of the violence and darkness.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I just saw. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the musical sequences, right? It was a musical, unlike the first one. It was bizarre. They were just started to dance and sing like in prison, and it was just alarming, very alarming.
It's funny because I just saw an ad for that on, I think it's on like Prime or one of those streaming platforms. Now you make it so bad, I'm actually intrigued in seeing how bad it is.
It could be like a hate watch. Yeah. Could be a hate watch.
All right. Number 2, what's your favorite movie quote, or name a movie or TV series that you believe everyone must watch?
Ooh.
So you can give me either or favorite movie quote or a movie or a TV series that you believe everyone must watch.
Okay. I'm going to answer the latter question. I am a big fan of rom-coms. Like that's the kind of stuff I feel like I grew up on and the stuff I want to make. I feel like it's really hard to choose one. But I feel like in the rom-com world, like one of my favorite movies that I watch like every year is The Best Man. And I feel like it just does like a really good job of showing the like Black experience authentically and having a successful like ensemble cast. I think it's really hard to have a wide-ranging cast and stories and tell it well. And then it also broke a lot of like big Black actors that gave them a shot and also catapulted their careers. And it almost like captured magic in a movie. So I'd say that. And then if I had to throw in one more, I'd say When Harry Met Sally. It's one of my like favorite rom-coms. And I just think it shows you that like rom-coms can be good movies too, right? They don't have to be the Christmas Prince. They can.
You don't have to be Hallmark.
Yeah.
Oh, those Hallmark ones get to me, man. I mean,
Ugh.
my mother, my moms, and my aunties, man, around Christmas time, jeez, Louise,
Yeah, recommend the
nonstop,
Christmas Prince to them. Yeah, they might like it.
nonstop.
Okay.
What- what- yeah.
Okay, this is a good question. I had to think about this. I would say a TV show that everyone should watch, especially Black people, that every Black person should watch. I recently watched, a few years ago, I watched Living Single for the first time, and
Wow.
I loved it. It had been
Yeah.
recommended to me. I see why people are like, it's the original Friends. It
Mhm.
just,
Facts.
like, the diversity within the cast, right? Like, it just
Mhm.
showed such a great array of the Black experience. And
Mhm.
plus, like they were so kooky. Like they were like they just
Mhm.
showed the weirdness that Black people can have. That we can be bougie, we can be country, we can be corporate. I just
Mhm.
love the variety within all the characters. It was so funny. And I loved how Queen Latifah was the lead, right? This tall, thick
Mhm.
Black woman just being a boss. Like I loved seeing that representation of her running the show, being the star. I loved Living Single. Every Black person should watch it. Every person should watch it. It's just a great show.
Love that. Love that. Okay, my last one here. Name a movie or TV series that inspired you or changed your life.
Oh, it's so hard having to pick. I'd say from a movie perspective, I mentioned two of my favorite like romance titles,
Mhm.
but one of my all-time favorite movies is Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee.
Spike Lee. Good choice.
And I feel like that's a movie that really changed like how I thought about like the world and filmmaking. That came out in 1989, and if you watch it today, it still feels so like resonant and important.
Very relevant.
It's so special, I think, to create like a classic movie that can be relevant in its time and also relevant like 30 years later. So I think that movie is so important. It's very Black, right? It's urban, it's set in Brooklyn. And I just think it's a masterpiece and something that showed me like, wow, that's how you make like classic film. Also, I think had a good balance of like drama, thriller, like being very authentic. So truly one of my favorite movies.
Love it. Laura, what about you?
Great pick. I would say, I'm going to say Get Out by Jordan Peele. That is what I'm going to say. I don't like scary movies. I really don't like horror. It's not my thing. But that movie really changed my perspective on film and how to, like, what is a Black story, right? I've never seen a movie like it. It's just so creative and new. And I just loved how Jordan Peele told the story of, like, a Black man in America. Like, unlike anything we've ever seen. So that movie really changed my perspective and, like, what, you know, showing the Black story can be.
That's a really good one. I like that. I think it'd be Hidden Figures for me in terms of inspiring, just because I don't think we tell enough of those stories, and I think they're very inspiring to know that. And I don't think that's just for Black people. I think that's a movie for all people who just enjoy film, movies, etc. So no, I love this part. That's the 3 questions. That's a surprise. They come at the end. Haha.
Great questions. Thank you.
So Laura, Shelby, for my listeners, for my audience that want to connect with you, that want to collaborate with you in some way, shape, or form, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yes, great question. The best way to directly contact us is on our Instagram at Sisters Who Watch. You can DM us, you can comment. You can also email us, sisterswhowatch@gmail.com. We want to hear from y'all. Like, let us know if there's titles that you want us to review. We're happy to do that. Yeah, so follow us on all our social medias at Sisters Who Watch. We have TikTok, we're also on YouTube. So leave us a comment on those places.
Amazing.
And we're available wherever you stream podcasts, Sisters Who Watch. Come for the reality TV, movies, TV shows, sports every now and then. We give our diverse POV on diverse content.
Amazing. I love it. Well, guys, that concludes this episode of 3 Questions. As my listeners know, I like to end each episode with saying this. Sometimes you don't need to hear or see anything new. You just need to hear or see that some other people went through it too. So with that being said, both Laura and Shelby and I are out. Peace and love. Until the next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Clockwise.